President Donald Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi today facing even more questions over their complete 180 on whether or not all the Epstein files should be released. President Trump was asked directly if the Attorney General has told him whether his name is in these files related to the sex trafficking investigation into Jeffrey Epstein.
Did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
Again, for the record, there's like literally zero evidence that these files were made up by Comey or Obama or Biden. The Epstein case was originally handled in 2005 to 2008 by local authorities in Palm Beach, Florida, and then by the George W. Bush Justice Department and FBI. Then Trump's first-term Justice Department in 2018-2019. Now, just moments after President Trump deferred to the Attorney General, CNN's Paula Reed got a chance to ask her to respond.
You said that he would support you releasing additional credible evidence from the Epstein investigation. Is that something that you are open to doing? He said this just a few moments ago.
This today is about fentanyl. This is about a wall of people right outside this room who have died from, I appreciate your question, but this today is about fentanyl overdoses throughout our country and people who have lost loved ones to fentanyl. That's the message that we're here to send today. Nothing about Epstein. I'm not going to talk about Epstein.
So, look, fentanyl is an incredibly important issue, one that we cover on the show all the time, but it's a little difficult to hear that message from the Attorney General on top of the assertion from the Justice Department now that there's nothing to see here, given how much Pam Bondi and other members of the Trump administration have been hyping all of this. And in February, Attorney General Bondi went on Fox, of course, the only channel she ever goes on, and she hyped up the release of the Epstein files, saying that the client list was literally sitting on her desk.
What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information.
So we know now that what she ended up releasing had already been widely publicly available. In fact, some of the documents were redacted and were unredacted on the internet. You'll note that Trump's stance on releasing more of the Epstein files as of this weekend was nothing to see here, move along. But that landed his administration firmly in the MAGA doghouse for the first time. And now they're perhaps trying to figure out how to get out of that doghouse. Let's bring in CNN's Paula Reed and CNN senior White House correspondent Kristen Holmes. And Paula, you got that Epstein question to Attorney General Bondi. What did you make of her answer, and what are you hearing about how this is all playing out in the Justice Department and the FBI?
What was so fascinating about this press conference is we know Bondi has several options on the table. One, release additional material. The president says he's in favor of that. She's not committing to doing that. Could always appoint a special counsel. She's not there yet. But here it's clear she's willing to try to ride this out. She appeared at this press conference where you don't usually always see an attorney general about drug interdiction, and she took questions. I was actually very surprised because it wasn't just my question. She got half a dozen questions about Epstein. She deflected every single one. At the end, the only thing she really said was, "My memo last week speaks for itself." We've seen President Trump do this many times, right? Ride out controversy, play the long game. It's unclear if this is going to work for her because this isn't something that has been drummed up by the press corps or reporters. We historically really haven't been asking about Epstein. We've asked about immigration, violent crime, other controversies. But if you look at everything that she's done since day one, she could tweet about her dog and you still get all of these MAGA supporters asking her about Epstein. This is something that the base, the president's supporters are focused on, and it's not clear if this strategy that she is pursuing now is going to work out in the long run. And if it doesn't, if this doesn't go away, she still has those other options. She could release more material. They could petition the court to unseal some things. They could also try to pass it off to a special counsel. The one thing she made clear today, Jake, she is not going to do is step aside. She suggested that she is committed to this job for up to four years.
So, and just to be clear here, we're talking about dozens, if not hundreds, of young girls who were victimized by Jeffrey Epstein, a predator,
yes,
who did not get to see justice, and whether or not, and there's questions about whether or not there were other wealthy men who were part of this criminal enterprise. Kristen Holmes, to you now. Today, President Trump saying, well, if the Attorney General wants to release more, she can. So what's the strategy here?
I'm not really sure that they have a strategy beyond waiting this out. I mean, I've talked to a number of people around President Trump. Many of them believe, and this is White House and officials in the administration, that this will blow over. But if you talk to some more of the hardcore MAGA loyalists, not necessarily in the administration, but some of the most vocal critics of Pam Bondi's, they are saying they're not giving up on this. And what you really saw after these remarks that President Trump made was them doubling down on that one tiny part of his remarks, which said that if Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, views it as credible, then she should release that information. That is not something that we had been hearing from the White House. It's not something that we had been hearing from around the administration. In fact, what we had been hearing was more in line with what the Attorney General said, that her memo speaks for itself. But now he has once again opened this door to potentially releasing new information. And what I saw today, and what I received calls on from a number of these loyalists, was, did you see what he said? Pam Bondi should release more information. It is unclear that that is what President Trump actually meant, but he has certainly opened up a new door here with this after he spent days saying the case was closed. Why are people even asking about Epstein? You know, people are now going to double down and call for the Attorney General to start releasing this based on just that tiny bit of what he said.
All right, Kristen Holmes, Paula Reed, thanks to both of you. Many of Epstein's victims have credited another victim, Virginia Giuffre, for giving them the courage to speak out publicly against Jeffrey Epstein. Giuffre alleged that Epstein trafficked her to his powerful friends, including Prince Andrew, who denied those allegations. Former U.S. Attorney Geoffrey Berman, a few years ago on this show, told us that Prince Andrew had originally pledged to cooperate and then refused to.
He goes on television, and it was an awful attempt to rehabilitate his his situation. And so then he issues a press release saying he's going to cooperate with the investigations. And I say, great. I tell my team, let's go out there, let's get his testimony, let's get him on the record. Well, that wasn't going to happen. His lawyers gave us the runaround.
Giuffre sadly died by suicide in April. Let's bring in Sigrid McCauley. She's an attorney who represented victims of Epstein, including Virginia Giuffre. So thanks so much for joining us. Before we get into details of the state of this case, I just want to ask you about Virginia Giuffre because you called her a friend. What has it been like to lose her? Do you think that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell would have even gone to prison if she had stayed silent?
Virginia Giuffre was really the heart of this case. She was the one who was brave enough to raise her voice and try to stop this sex trafficking operation that had literally gone on for over 20 years and had injured hundreds of young individuals. So she was really at the center of bringing this justice to fruition. So it's a huge loss to not have her with us anymore.
I'm so sorry that you lost your friend. Horrible, horrible situation. You've said that the Justice Department is sitting on a treasure trove of Epstein information, files from the seizures of Epstein's computers at his various homes, Palm Beach, New Mexico, New York, financial records. Why do you think the Justice Department won't release these now after making a big deal out of promising transparency? And let's be very clear here. Obviously, the names of the survivors or names of innocent people who played no role in anything, obviously you can redact their names out of it. Nobody's saying that. But there's so much information. Why do you think they're hiding it?
It's a great question. I mean, they're sitting on a multitude of information. They've had hundreds of interviews that they've undertaken over the many years they've been investigating Epstein and his co-conspirators and their crimes, and yet they're not turning over any of it. It's really, truly shocking. And as you saw in some of the early lists that they produced, many, many computers were taken. Think about all the email traffic between Epstein and those people who were involved in his inner circle. And the American public deserves to see that. They deserve to know how these crimes were facilitated for so long and at such a high level. And that's what's really missing here.